In a world where A-Dub and E-Ray have left their mics, a man emerges from Bill and Ted's phone booth that also kind of looks like a DeLorean to give the people what they didn't even know they needed. He captivates the masses with his stories of quantum leaping from one wrestling era to another, comparing and contrasting the wrestling world of old with the wrestling world of today in only the way he can. Ladies and gentlemen, Let Me Book the Territory proudly presents The B.A. Show, featuring Sean from Fourth Rope Wrestling, powered by the Embrace the Turn Up Network.
Hey, yo, in the words of the color commentator Vince McMahon of the 90s, welcome everyone to the month of SummerSlam. This is Let Me Book the Territory proudly presents The B.A. Show, episode 6, with your boy, B.A. DiBiase, a.k.a. Black IRS, a.k.a. the Beef of the East, B.A. Bigelow, at your services. But I could not do this without. It's a lot of heavy lifting this month, y'all. A lot of SummerSlams. Can only have my trusted wise man, my manager, the genius, Mr. at Fourth Rope, Sean the homie. What's good?
Ooh, what is going on, man? Not much. It is the month of SummerSlams.
It is here. It's upon us.
We have a lot. And it's an interesting dynamic that we actually chose to go with this month, man. So we're picking some different SummerSlams here. So tell me a little bit about what we are reviewing today.
Yes. As Sean just mentioned, this will be a different couple. I'd say the next 4 releases will be a little different. Those of us that you're back here for episode 6, I'm assuming you're enjoying what you're listening to. So you're going to get this a lot more frequent here for the next month. You're going to get back to back BA and Sean breakdowns of our most favorite SummerSlam. So what we did was I chose 2, Sean chose 2, and we're starting off with the OG, my favorite one. I call it the sympathy, the symphony of SummerSlams. I think that's how the symphony, not sympathy. Nobody feels bad for SummerSlam. The symphony of SummerSlams, leading off this month with 1996 edition of SummerSlam. Now, I'm sure people, you're wondering, like, who cares? Like, it's 1996 SummerSlam. But as I was saying, in my backyard, the SummerSlam 1996 is where it took place in, and that was the main thing for me as far as the buy-in, like why it popped me to watch that, because I couldn't have watched this if it wasn't a pay-per-view that I actually attended. And to give you a little background on the story of me attending, or how we got to attend. So my mom and my stepdad, who I consider my dad, got married in 96, summer of 96, August that year. And they went on their honeymoon to Vegas. And I think they felt bad that they were going to Vegas without me and my brother. They were like, hey, you're going to have to stay at grandma's house for like a week. But we got you SummerSlam tickets the day we fly out. So we didn't care. And I remember leading up to SummerSlam, my brother started to get sick. He had like allergies, or he was just actually sick. So he still went. My aunt Sandy and my Uncle John all went with us. They were the chaperones since my parents wasn't there, and we had a fucking blast, bro. I don't really remember a lot of the matches verbatim. I remember the Boiler Room Brawl sticks out to me because the lights were out the whole time when they were in the back, and then before it started, they rolled out the substitute teacher TVs to the front row, because back in the day there was no humongous Titantrons and humongous Jumbotron screens and arenas. It was just your basic little pixelated TV screen that you couldn't really see if you were right on the floor. So they rolled out the TVs. I was like, oh, that's different. You don't see that on TV. And that, like I said, hearing Shawn Michaels and seeing his entrance was pretty cool as a kid, because that 96 was the year where he came out WrestleMania 12 a few months before this. from the rafter thing with this from the little zip line that he did.
Hold on.
Yeah, so Shawn Michaels entrances were a whole thing back then. And to be able to see that live was pretty dope. But on top of that, there were things that I forgot while watching this. Like there was they showcased my city's rapid train that goes through town and picks people up and takes them around the different spots in the east and west side of the city. By having that race with a horse at the Smoking Guns and the Godwins, and then it ended at the Gund Arena, now Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, where the Cleveland Cavaliers play. So that was the cool stuff for me, especially because as a kid, my mom worked downtown, so I was always down there, pretty much 5 days a week, either when my pops was picking her up, or some days we would come down there and get to hang out in the mall called Tower City, me and my brother. And we used to go hang out at this coffee shop next to my mom's strip. So there's a lot of history, man. Lots and lots of history that made me feel good about this card. But I ain't gonna cap, because that was pretty much it. as really, really good things from this card. Like I said, this is mid-90s WWF. I think this is the first time we've breached this territory, no pun intended, of WWF/WWE wrestling outside of the first episode. Am I right on that, Sean?
Yeah, for the most part, yeah. You're pretty much right on that one. Rare territory that we're diving into here, and this is like way beyond my time. Not way beyond my time, but way beyond my remembrance of watching wrestling. You know, I wasn't even conceived at this time, so
negative 10 years old.
Exactly, bro. Oh my god, exactly. So yeah, man, we gotta gonna be an interesting one. So what's up first on the card?
For sure. I mean, and this is I'm glad you bring that up, Sean. So we doing these SummerSlams a little different. We ain't going match for match, especially after sitting down and watching this. I was like, no way everybody's gonna want to hear the breakdown of. And no, we're disrespect to either one of these gentlemen. They're legends in their own right. Savio Vega versus Owen Hart to open up the card. Wasn't gonna do it to the listeners. That's a tough sell, to say the very least. So with that being said, I thought we would kind of tackle the lowlights first. You never want to end bad, so I figured we start with end with the highlights, and then just get into the main event, because there's a lot of conversations to be had about 1996 Shawn Michaels and a 1996 Vader at these crossroads of their careers, because they're both legends. Again, I'm going to say that on this show quite a bit. I feel like legends in their own rights as far as what Vader meant to pro wrestling, and we all know about Mr. Showstopper, so I'm not even going to throw them flowers because they've been thrown already. So I'll start off with the funny shit. Like I the first note I had was 1996 WWF in general was just straight nonsense. And this is kind of like the end of like the ridiculous characters and the ridiculous like new generation gimmicks. It's still kind of trickled in there a little bit, and you see that in the appearance of one John Bradshaw Layfield, now then Justin Hawk Bradshaw, when he walked down to the ring at the end of the Savio Vega and Owen Hart match to, I guess, yell at the commentators for no reason with Dutch Mantell by his side and beat the shit out of Savio Vega. Some would call that a hate crime, Sean. I'm not even gonna lie from what I saw. So, do you even remember this happening on the card? Like seeing a young Bradshaw? Did you even recognize him, I should say?
It took me a minute to recognize him, because you got to think the first time I saw Bradshaw was JBL in a cowboy hat and a suit, in a Longhorn limo. So, and then seeing him APA, and then before, I think he was in, was it the new Blackjacks or something like that? Or I can't remember. Yeah, he was in one of those gimmicks. He
was one of those terrible Jim Cornette tag
repackaged tag team. So I didn't recognize him at first, honestly. It took me to a couple watch throughs to be like, oh shit, that's Bradshaw. So yeah, man, really surprising there.
Yeah, it was weird. I forgot about this. I'm sure Bradshaw probably did too. I think this gimmick lasted all of like 6 to 8 months, from what I remember about this. This is in the era of the Ringmaster, Steve Austin, and that kind of weirdness happening in WWF.
Weird shit.
Yeah, so that kind of threw me off, but not as much as the second match on the card, which is lumped into the lowlights, as we say. The 4-way tornado tag, question mark, or the tag team titles. You had the likes of the New Rockers featuring one Marty Jannetty, who there's what can't we say, and Leif Garrity, aka Al Snow. The second match on this show, by the way, that we've broken down, the New Rockers. They've been on the card. They were on the Unforgiven 1998 card. Go listen to the BA episode number 1 to hear that breakdown of that just nothing match. And also you had the Body Donnas, Chris Candido and Skip and Zip as their characters were, but Chris Candido and Dr. Tom Pritchard. And then also the Smoking Guns, who were the tag team champs. And the shockingly over and got a huge pop in Cleveland, the Godwins. That whole like country and Slewy, I think Vince said, when the pig noise was made, they were making, and throwing a slap on people. That was just 90s WWF, like I said. So this is a very good representation
with Hillbilly Jim out of everyone.
Yeah, because of course. So this match, like I said, it was weird because dudes were getting pinned, but the tag team wasn't getting eliminated because only one person would get sent out the match. Also, you see Sunny on this card at least 4 different times. I feel like with 3 different talents managing. That's how over she was at this period of time. Like people can say what they will say about Sunny, but you can't argue with how over she is on this show. She's just out there just because, as we'll talk about later. But anything that stuck out to you from this match outside of just Marty Jannetty and those comments he made about Shawn Michaels a few months ago?
The random ass assortment of tag teams in here. The trickling of the bullshit gimmicky stuff WWF did that you're trying to kind of shy away from a little bit. The colors that the Rockers are wearing are just
not flattering.
It's like it kind of looks like a great value of that Scott Steiner onesie or it's Rick Steiner onesie that he used to wear.
They look like those generic wrestling men you'd see in like Kmart that were not even WCW or WWF. They were just wrestling dudes.
Dude.
Yeah, his name's like Strong Sean.
Yeah,
and he's wearing like.
I think every single one of these tag teams in here is just got terrible ass gimmicks. Looks terrible. The wrestling was pretty terrible. Yeah, but yeah, that's what stuck out the most. Everything was pretty bad.
Yeah, it was a big just like hold fest and let's run the ropes and do goofy shit in the ring. It was so early to mid 90s WWF. Like this was a perfect encapsulation of what Vince was trying to get away from. But people still would be over for it because that's what they were used to seeing from this product. But not like the Smoking Guns retained. Billy Gunn's talking hella shit into the camera. I don't know why. I'm like, all right, Billy. Like
they're the only believable ones in the fucking match. Who? I mean, you think the Godwins or the Body Donnas are gonna beat the fucking Smoking Guns at this point in '96, bro? Hell no, dude. That shit
even a negative 10-year-old shy can see that. Yes, it's ridiculous, bro. But yeah, the fact Marty Jannetty's just on my TV screen, just come on, like. The stuff that he said in the news in the last 10, 15 years itself, like, is just a joke. So let's Google, if you want to go check the archives, go Google Marty Jannetty, Shawn Michaels interview and tell me what you find. Comment in our on Spotify and Apple and SoundCloud for us, please. So from that stinker, the next thing that kind of jumped out to me on the card, we get the match between Psycho Sid and Davey Boy Smith. And by the way, Sean, I just want to let you know, during this time frame, Davey Boy, Owen Hart, Yoko when he was in there, who was now replaced by Vader, Cornette was like Cornette's like stable, basically, of bad guys. And he would manage them. And then also Clarence Mason, the black guy you saw outside with the Stokely Hathaway vibes.
Okay.
He was like his underling. At the time in the mid-90s, the OJ trial was very popular. So Clarence Mason was there to be kind of like a Johnny Cochran type of dude, where he's the brains of the operation. And then all throughout the show, they hear and try to insinuate that Clarence Mason's trying to steal Jim Cornette's spot because Jim Cornette's not coming out with any other talent for some reason up until the end of this match. But yeah, I just want to give you that break. I'm sure you had no idea who he was. And am I wrong on that, or am I right?
Oh, very, very right. You know,
I had a feeling.
Saw him, but no. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, upon initial look, dude looked great. So I don't really know what the fuck happened to him, because
there's a whole story behind that. I did not do the research. Not gonna lie, listeners, about what happened to Clarence Mason. If he shows up again on the show that we review, I'll be sure to give you that info. But that was not priority here this evening. What's the whereabouts of Clarence Mason? But the biggest thing that bothered me about this match, and in fairness, they fixed it very fast in this year, going into next year, is babyface Sid. Yuck. People were excited to see him back, and shout out to my city. They were very, very excited. He got a huge pop when he came out. I've never heard all of Psycho Sid's theme in the WWF until this pay-per-view. Didn't know they had to redo it. He was walking out, taking his time, pumping his chest, fist bumping everybody in the crowd. That's so not Sid, bro. And to educate you on who Sid is, Sid has always been just a menacing heel, just son of a bitch, just to be what it is. He's the powerbomb machine. He was just a menacing guy, and he was very loud, very just kind of just extra. Okay. So Sid was known for just being just like that monster heel, basically. Like, if you were to compare him to anybody today, I would say you could compare him to a Braun before Braun went face with Ricochet. Kind of how he was just this monster, just wrecking everybody. So you could say Sid that, but Braun is way more charismatic than Sid.
I was about to say, it looks like Sid needs work a little better than Braun's, and he's got a little more charisma. Just from the little bit that I've seen of Sid, I didn't really fuck with his character growing up. Even when I did know about him, didn't follow him. As a kid, I rather would have, ripped my shirt like Hulk Hogan than, fuck with Psycho Sid. So
yeah, Sid was never supposed to be liked. As the WWF realized, after people were just excited to see him again on their TVs, because he was more of a WCW guy, in all honesty. That's where he made a lot of his name. And then he student of the game and just finessing contracts. He went to the WWF. He was on the card for WrestleMania 8. He fought Hulk Hogan on the double main event card as Sid Justice at the time. Sid Justice. Yeah, that was his name when he came in the first time in the WWF. Then he left again, went back to WCW. Left WCW. Sid is known around the locker rooms to be a very big softball player. He loves softball. He's so much so he'll miss wrestling commitments to go play softball. Dude loves softball, I guess. Yes, look it up. Ask Bruce Pritchard. He talks about it all the time on the show. But yeah, so Sid being a babyface here was very, in my eyes, just weird, because you never really see that presentation of Sid in any of WCW or WWF stuff that he's in. But it was just, that was the biggest thing. It was just like, gross. Why is this happening? But in fairness, he will become a heel again. He'll as soon become Shawn Michaels' bodyguard, and then he will turn on Shawn Michaels, and then they will have a feud themselves. So that's, I hate the pay-per-views down the road.
The bodyguard gimmick is fucking trash. I've always hated it.
It works. You have to be a heel. You have to be a shit heel for that to be bought into as a serious, real thing.
The only one I ever bought into was Christian and Tyson Tomko. That was it.
I can see that. I mean, and as far as my childhood, when this was more of a prevalent thing that they were doing, And I think Shawn made it popular, in all honesty, with Diesel. That was the only one I bought because Shawn was a legitimate heel when he brought in Diesel for the first time. Like, he was a shit heel. Like, Shawn was not... This is when he was starting to turn into the workhorse, but he was still, like, the sleazy, like... I'm here to, like, just... for the women and all that kind of shit. I'm a piece of shit. Nobody likes me.
And shit.
Yeah. Before he turned into like the worker you couldn't deny in the ring, and that was Shawn's gimmick first. So when he got rid of Sherry and then was doing it on his own, he brought in Diesel to watch his back. When dealing with Razor and shit like that. So that's how all of that became. So outside of that, I never really bought into those types of gimmicks, but. It did have a place, and I feel like Shawn made it that, but they kind of killed it when Psycho Sid went that route, becoming that for him. But moving on, and also if you want to see something disgusting, Google Sid Vicious breaking his leg in the ring. It's pretty disgusting, Sean. I don't know if you've ever seen that. No. Him jumping off of the top rope and landing on one leg and one leg snapping inside. It's pretty crazy on a Nitro episode. Google that for your
that sounds nasty. That sounds later. Nasty.
It's pretty wild. Also, moving on, we get the Goldust versus Marc Mero match pretty much after this. It was just a meh match. Some would call it a low light in itself. I'm not gonna rip it apart for that specifically. I will rip it apart for Mr. Perfect's commentary. He's kind of bad throughout the whole pay-per-view, but it really sticks out in this match. He says, like, at a point in time, like, everybody's talking about, like, people from Cleveland and stuff, and then he said, isn't Goldust from Cleveland? And nobody says anything. And, like, I was just like, that's no joke. Like, okay. And it is also just, as you'll see throughout the show, or hear throughout the show, just kind of more in just Mr. Perfect character versus actually calling the match like he should, because you're a wrestler and you're there to give us the wrestler insight on what's happening in the ring. So his commentary really bothered me. It's very garbage in my opinion. This match in particular, I heard some one-liners that made me cringe, man. Did you hear Perfect throughout the pay-per-view, or did he kind of was just like you couldn't really hear him for real?
So when I hear bad commentary, I try to drown it out after a while, or else it's just gonna kill the viewing experience for me. I heard this dude's commentary, and like you said, he was more just in the character and looking at a match versus actually being a commentator and calling the damn match and, providing color commentary or whatever the fuck you're supposed to do for him.
Right.
It was trash. Especially during the Goldust match, and that kind of made it shine just how clunky the match was. I feel like he didn't even know how to call it or what to say, or it just accentuated it. It accentuated it, but yeah.
Yeah, that match, like I said, was just clunky, and it was just weird. You had a Mankind citing him squealing at Sable, like, because she was the damsel in distress, and Mankind's, like, Quasimodo vibes are heavy in this character early on in his arrival to WWF, and then you get what Goldust loved to do in this time in the 90s, a sexual assault when he kisses Sable without her permission and gets slapped by Marc Mero. Goldust was doing this quite a bit to men and women at this time frame, which was the WWF trying to get away from the goofy, ridiculous gimmicks like we saw in that second match with the 4-way tag. So this is, like I said, it's a very weird, like, dichotomy of things happening in the WWF. You have, like, the weird early 90s gimmicks that are, like, cheesy and colorful and are little to no pro wrestling involved. And then you get, like, the Attitude Era snippings with things like Goldust, and Stone Cold is now a thing. King of the Ring was this year. King of the Ring was 2 months before this, where he lambasted Jake the Snake Roberts, and the rest of the WWF got put on notice forever, basically, when Austin 316 was born. So there's a lot of different stuff happening at this time. Also, I don't think anybody's ever known the story. If you do, I'm sure you guys have heard this. It's just being a smart Mark and listening to podcasts and such. But Marc Mero, him being in the ring, is very significant to wrestling in this stage because he signed the first ever, like, guaranteed deal. It wasn't the NWO guys in WCW. No, it was Marc Mero coming over from WCW. Vince loved Johnny B. Bad. He loved that character. Do you remember or seeing Johnny B. Bad ever, Sean?
Nope.
Oh, man. Johnny B. Bad was like, Marc Mero was wearing like eyeliner and makeup and would have like tassels on and real sparkly. Yeah, man. But it was super over. I loved Johnny B. Bad as a kid. And he would like shoot like the confetti gun out the crowd before the match would start. He was high flying, lots of moves, but that character did not show up in WWF, as we know. That was not Wild Man Marc Mero. Wild Man Marc Mero was no character whatsoever. It was just the man. Vince bought Johnny B. Bad, but got Marc Mero, basically. He really, really liked that gimmick.
Wow.
So if you ever want to watch some interesting wrestling, go watch Marc Mero as Johnny B. Bad in early 90s WCW. He was a great talent over there. He definitely put on quite a bit.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely something you should look into. But then we get just promo city. There was like a solid 30 to 40 minutes of promos. I feel like this was like the intermission of the show. You get Ahmed Johnson in his bathroom wearing some robe with no shirt underneath it. Guaranteed probably not wearing pants either. And the fact that they're interviewing people about his injury. They had something with Farouk, aka Farouk Assad at the time, who's dressing like a Dragon Ball Z villain with this ridiculous helmet on. He attacks Ahmed Johnson. And at a point in this interview, they don't interview the fake doctors. They're interviewing nurses. I was like, what the fuck is a nurse going to tell them about his injury? Very strange to me. Did you remember this promo, or did you get up and go, was this a smoke break part of your watching session?
Yeah, I watched it. It was weird. I mean, I wasn't paying attention much because they were running a shitload of promos at the time and things like that.
Yeah.
I didn't really enjoy any of them, to be honest. I kind of droned them out.
Oh, they were cringe. Outside of the one when they was putting over downtown Cleveland, and I'm gonna get to that kind of stuff more in the highlights here. The 5 minutes of them that I have to talk about.
Honestly.
Yeah, it's terrible. But yeah, it was, like you said, those promos, it was just so weird because, like, as we've been watching, this episode 6, so like the first 5 episodes, there's kind of like reasons, like there's reasons and purpose for those spots. Like, it felt like an intermission, like I was at a Broadway play. And it's just 3 segments of just nonsense. And I guess it's cool if you watch him back and you try and understand what's happening around these matches. But fucking Ahmed Johnson didn't even wrestle. He wasn't even there. No, he was there. They had like a beach. They had they never showed it. It was more during the free for all, which is like the free 30 minutes he would get before the pay-per-view would start. So they would show a dark match basically.
Yeah, that was
on TV.
Yeah, it had a Stone Cold and Yoko.
Yes, yeah, and this one specifically. But there was like a backstage like beach party, quote unquote, for SummerSlam. So Ahmed Johnson was there, but he didn't go on camera outside of that because he didn't wrestle. He was hurt because Farouk. But to that point, why are we talking? Why are we filling this card up with this? Because you then get a Farouk promo in person in the arena. Again, an excuse to just get Sunny on TV again because she was so over in 1996.
Pretty much.
Yeah. And I'm too little to even really to be all horned up like these other kids, so it doesn't really matter to me. I'm not even there mentally yet. Like I said, it was a weird promo. Farouk was just in there flexing his muscles, showing off Sunny. No purpose other than that, just to let Ahmed Johnson know what time it was. So there's that, and then we get into the last little promo series, which goes into honestly one of the most like cringe-worthy matches for all the wrong reasons, I'd say. The Jake the Snake promos with Jerry Lawler leading up to his match. Yeah, you know it's the 90s when you see people getting made fun of for well-known alcoholism. And I was just like, wow, they had this all on TV. And yeah, there was a lot of scenarios of Jerry Lawler throwing Jim Beam at Jake the Snake. On past Raws before this, they were showing all that. Even though like those jokes were hilarious, now we'll get to those in the highlights. It was just weird to see all of this and like getting made fun of, because if anybody knows the Jake the Snake story. Like Jake the Snake was a huge alcoholic and widely known about the demons he battled. So for them to bring that to the forefront on a wrestling show in 1996 and legitimately pour Jim Beam down this man's face, or in this man's face while he was laying down, I was like, wow. More to the dichotomy of 1996 wrestling where Attitude Era stuff versus the goofy, cheesy shit they're trying to get away from. So this is another example of that, man. Like, we didn't even really know we were watching, like, the seeds be planted of the Attitude Era, but this was wild to me, man. But what were your thoughts?
You could see that shit, and there's a lot of stuff that they did, even like you said, just in this stuff with Gold Dust and then pouring fucking liquor in a, alcoholic's face, and then fucking Lawler putting up the giant bottle of champagne and shit like that. Like, bro, it's just like, bro, he was such an asshole. Like, I don't like Lawler's wrestling, but at this time, oh my god, like,
yeah, he was
asshole, bro, asshole. And to do that shit on TV or on a pay-per-view to an alcoholic, that's like, yeah, you could see the seeds being planted.
I'd argue he was just as big, probably the best heel on this show outside of Vader, who gets healed over, as we'll discuss later. But yeah, his heel, I think he knew he had to lean into like his early Memphis behavior, and this is what it reminded me a lot of, just constant low blow, low hanger fruit jokes after another. I'll get more into those in my highlights. I'm not going to get into them now with the lows, but like I said, it was that jumped off the screen to me as just like, wow, like that's pretty wild. 1996, but 1996. So yeah. Moving on. Getting to the end of the low lights here. Boiler Room Brawl, very iconic match. If you were watching the product at this time. Sean, was this the first time you had seen this match before? I know this is a more highly regarded match in history of wrestling.
It's the first time I've seen it fully through. Yes.
Nice.
I've saw clips of it, through Twitter and highlights on WWE airing it, back when they ran Boiler Room Brawls in like the early 2000s and shit like that. I would see, they would play back clips of the first one and ththings like that. So yeah, it's the first time I saw it full through.
Yeah, and like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I believe, where I did, where just this match was just very cool to me. Just like I said, the whole arena was dark, like the whole match until they came out. So while you watching it on the big screen, like I said, they rolled out the TVs for the people in the front row so they could see, which I thought was a cool little 90s touch. To see that again, and then also remember I saw it in real life, is cool. What the low lights to me in this match, I hated the cheesy technical difficulty spots. That really annoyed me. I'm glad they weren't doing that in the arena. I don't remember that happening during the match. It could have very well been, but I don't recall that. But it was very annoying to see that, because I'm like, that's bullshit. There's no way that's really messing up. So I didn't appreciate that, because it's, again, cheesy 90s stuff leaking into the product. You don't have to do that. Like, y'all care too much about this product for technical difficulties, quote unquote, to be happening. That really irked me about this match. But outside of that, it's a classic, and we'll lean on more of it in the highlights of this card. Did the technical difficulties bother you at all, man? Or you just was like, fuck it, it's adding to the suspense of the match?
Yeah. The only reason I didn't mind it is because they've pulled that shit a lot in like the pay-per-views and shows that I've watched with them. The more iconic ones, they did a lot of the stuff when Stone Cold was getting beat down in the restroom. There was a couple of them hardcore backstage matches where it would cut back and the camera would go bad, or the cameraman gets hit and the camera breaks and shit like that. So I didn't really care. I don't agree with it, but it didn't faze me.
Got you. Yeah, something's annoying me. I get it though. And then the last thing, my last low light, was the beginning of like the weird druid stuff with Undertaker. This is where the first time it was ever introduced. As a kid, this really freaked me out, because I'm like, what is happening? Had no purpose, no meaning. They never followed up on it until, you could argue, 1998, 1999, when the ministry
of darkness.
Yeah, when the ministry comes around, that's when that stuff becomes more like prevalent. Like I said, you don't really see a lot of that until 2-3 years later. So either again planting seeds for future Attitude Era stuff.
They cooking, man. You gotta let the pot brew, man.
I'll give you that because I forgot the people that are still alive at this time and what they like. Very innovative minds still in backstage area, and Pat Patterson, and guys that had a lot of respect from people that we love and respect in the business. So I'll give you the let it cook. But if it was today's wrestling, I would call bullshit all day and night on that.
and it's Taker. You got to think, how many different iterations of Taker have you seen on WWE products? Like,
big facts. And we're going to see a lot of them as this month goes, for sure. Good and bad. And we can't wait to break that shit down. But this one's the classic purple glove Undertaker. You can't knock this. This is part of the OG Undertaker, in my opinion.
Which was so weird to see him in such a gimmicky match like a Boiler Room Brawl. They pulled it off pretty well, but to see Purple Glove Undertaker, which was such a serious character at the time, like devastating to face in a Boiler Room Brawl match, was just a little weird, using trash cans and fucking pallets and shit like that. Little weird to see, little weird.
Yeah, but like you said, he leaned into it, and honestly, I knew it wasn't like we decades away from this, but it reminded me a lot of like the Last Ride like match he had with AJ Styles, the cinematic match. He even though it wasn't that, it was live, it was backstage, like, and they did matches like that in the past. It was just like I said, the way he was acting, he was selling like the walking slow, trying to find mankind, battle it out, beating the shit out of each other with stuff. So yeah, it was a very methodical match. As we get into the good shit of this card, kind of brushed over a lot of the stuff that I wrote down as good stuff. Again, Cleveland, Ohio, it's where I'm from, it's where I live. Beautiful times to see in my city. Love the fact that they went to the hood and was like painting like brick walls in like the inner city, and it was nothing but kids of color that they were with. That was dope to see. I loved all my boys that was hounding Sonny at the wall. And I was like, them kids know what they're doing. But yeah, and then just the superstars just being in the hood, like, that's always cool to see that kind of stuff. Always brings a smile to my face. Like I said, the fact Sonny was just how over she was stuck out on this card to me. She deserves her flowers as an OG diva. She created that whole vibe of a manager. I know Sable was there too, but she was doing it before Sable was, as we saw on this card. Sable was just the arm piece. Still, even though we went from Triple H to Marc Mero, she has not turned into the Sable that is regarded in the business as a pioneer. So gotta give Sonny her flowers for that. As controversial as a figure that she is. Talked about Clarence Mason. He was definitely a highlight. His behavior throughout this card. Like I said, I will definitely give y'all more on the Clarence Mason story in a future podcast episode that we break down from this time period. JR was very quippy on this card. Him and Vince were very, very loose. The more looser than they've ever been, especially during the Jake the Snake match. Vince McMahon was laughing at a lot of the jokes Jerry Lawler and Mr. Perfect and Jim Ross were making about Jake the Snake's alcoholism. And Vince was just like, oh, that's not right. Like, laughing though. That stuck out to me. It was pretty fucking funny.
I think they were more like nervous laughs, kind of. Like.
He was serious. Like, it sounded like he was seriously getting popped by these jokes. Like, it was no nervous. Like, yeah, this shit is hilarious, but it's terrible. But I'm gonna laugh anyways. Like, that's why I was just like, wow, hilarious. Because Vince is very different on the mic, like as a commentator, and that's why he's known for like jumping down them dudes' necks through the earpiece, because he did the job.
Yep.
For a long time, before he even owned the WWF. So he takes that very serious. So for him, like you said, it may have been him thinking he was doing the nervous laugh, but 2023, we all know Vince well enough and his personality. Like, that motherfucker was really laughing at them jokes, and they were funny. King was landing some shit, bro. Like, it was not supposed to be as funny as it was. And shout out to the King for wearing the Vinny Testaverde jersey. To give you some background as to what was happening, the Browns had just left Cleveland, Sean, the year before. The 95 season was the last season of the OG Browns before they went to Baltimore. So King, knowing Cleveland, and Jerry Lawler is a Cleveland sports fan, by the way, as he doing the characters leaning in heavy. So I have much respect to his heel behavior. This just further gave me like, all right, I gotta respect that. Putting on the Ravens jersey, very angry Cleveland crowd. Even though he is a Cleveland Browns fan and Indians fan himself, as we saw on the promo stuff they showed throughout the show. Mm-hmm. He leaned into his heel work very well here, and I was very happy to see it. And then like we were talking about, as far as like the highlights, the Boiler Room Brawl in general, the match just like, it was a long match too. It was like a 35-minute match, it felt like. It was a very tale of two matches. You get the turn at the end from Paul Bearer. This is when first time you see Paul Bearer kind of start to do heel shit. So it was, like I said, there was a lot of firsts in this match, and then Undertaker getting the urn taken away from him for the first time, even though it happens many a times years down the road after this.
A lot. It becomes kind of cliche at that point.
Yes, big time. This is the first time it happened though, but it was, and I saw it live, so it was very cool to have that on my wrestling notch, so to speak, to have that crossed off the bucket list, to say I saw some monumental stuff happen as it did. So like I said, not a lot of highlights, but we got there. We found some good stuff to talk about, right? And then the last thing I want to get into about this card is the main event. You got 96 Sean, who was a whole just hurricane to deal with in the back.
Asshole.
He was, and this was the beginning of his asshole behavior. Like 98 was when it was completely just like at an all-time just fever pitch. So this was the beginning of like just like Sean flexing his Hogan muscles with a lot of stuff and behavior in the ring versus a 1996 Vader, who, like I said, Vader, as far as big men in wrestling, you have to give him his props. Not necessarily for what he did in WWF. He didn't have a great WWF run in either one of the times he's showed his face back, in my opinion. More because of talent, but as far as people he was going against, kind of conspiring against him, one of which being in the ring with him, as we saw during this match, if you knew what you were looking for. But his work in WCW and his work in New Japan, you have to pay respect to. And I think that's what made him a Hall of Famer, in my opinion. I was familiar with Vader from when he was Big Van Vader in WCW, when he used to wear the Mastodon mask out. Scary as hell. Put it at the top of the ramp. The smoke would blow out. And he would have that crazy looking mask on. To me, it looked crazy as a kid. Because you didn't see guys wear masks like that. And he just looked like a monster. Like the way his haircut was and the way he would bark and act, and just like he was a very scary heel to a young BA in WCW. Yes, very believable. So and you'll hear Cornette say similar things, because the Vader that they got in WWF, he was more timid in the ring. You could see it in this match. I think more because of Shawn and his behavior, and him not wanting to mess up for him, because he knew how much power Shawn wielded in the back. And you can kind of see the power that Shawn wields. Like if you go back and watch that entrance that Shawn has, if you notice the whole pay-per-view, there's no Titantron video for anybody. They just got the stupid stills of the match that you're about to see on the Titantron. But when Shawn comes out, you should hear Vince like, everybody get out of your seat. It's the leader of the new generation. You're WWF champion. Like, and it's even in the video. They put leader of the new generation in the video package for Shawn's Sexy Boy theme music.
Push.
So you can see how much they put into his stock. Also, y'all got to keep in mind, this is the summer of 1996. Last month, the NWO just started on Down the Dial to tie back into a previously recorded episode, the Monday Night War Breakdown. So Vince is like, this is like my only real like ace in the hole is Shawn Michaels. Like everything else, I got like Brett's at home right now. He's nowhere. He went home for a while after WrestleMania 12. None of the guys that are about to be guys are not that yet. Like I said, Stone Cold just became Stone Cold 2 months before it is. Triple H is still in his like high nose in the air, like pretentious East Coast guy gimmick. Like, so there's none of those guys around Shawn. It's like Shawn and everybody else. And oh, by the way, Diesel and Razor Ramon just walked out 2 months before this pay-per-view and a couple months into his title run. So these are the guys he's supposed to be feuding with, in my opinion, to kind of keep that title meaningful while Brett's at home healing up from his run and all that stuff, and these other guys are about to get put on. So it left, and then this is why I hate about watching 95 through 98 Shawn, is what could have been if they weren't politicking so heavy. But Shawn, as I talk through all of this stuff from my era, what of that is news to you? And what is your take on 95 through 98 Shawn? Because if I remember correctly, like, this is all new to you. You're familiar with Shawn 02 on, pretty much, right?
For the most part, just wrestling period, I was most familiar with 02 on, but Shawn Michaels happens to be arguably and internally my favorite wrestler. So I was aware, because the one thing that I love the most, which I was interested about, I went to somewhere called Mama's Pizza, and they had I can't remember if it was a WrestleMania arcade game or not, but it had Shawn Michaels as like the cover athlete. And I played it, and I was just curious about, when the fuck did Shawn Michaels look like this? And so
that was WrestleMania the arcade game.
Yes.
For sure.
Okay. So
it came out like in the mid 90s.
Yeah. So I played WrestleMania the arcade game, went back and watched a bunch of shit, because I asked my dad who Shawn Michaels wrestled before then, and so he showed me a bunch of shit before Shawn Michaels, and so I've seen him wrestle. Didn't know about the politicking. I wasn't really apt to the title runs and things like that, so I've seen the image of him and how he wrestles and how good he was. But going back now and hearing you explain, all the politics and, why the people left and things like that, and how the title runs were supposed to go, what it could have been if things didn't happen. Yeah, it's sad to hear that my favorite wrestler could have been even greater.
Yeah, man. And a lot of those things are in his control. I want to emphasize that. Like Shawn, like Diesel and Razor tried to stay if Vince would have paid him, but Vince said he couldn't pay him, and them dudes was getting the moon and the stars in WCW, like stupid guarantee money. So not his fault, but as you see in this match, like what is his fault, things he can control, is Vader forgets a couple spots, which I think, there's a naked eye, like if he would have just rolled through the match, like we've seen botches every time you watch wrestling. You can't help it, and that's fine.
Abundantly, yeah.
Nobody's perfect. It's cool. Shout out to Botchamania. If you want to laugh at some funny botches, that's always a good time. But he could have easily like made that into something else instead of like, and the spot that was missed, I think Vader thought that he was about to get an elbow from Shawn. And Shawn instead like is expecting to get kicked in the face, I think, from a Vader, like about to like show some like an attack from laying down basically, and then get some offense in from there. So there's a miscommunication. So Shawn's thinking he's supposed to get kicked in the face or something. Vader's thinking he's about to take an elbow, it looks like, because he doesn't do anything. So Shawn like kicks him in the head, like legitimately, like 4 times. And you can see him calling him a stupid motherfucker as he's kicking him in the head. It's wild. And as a kid, I'm not seeing this. Hey, I'm in the fucking nosebleeds of the, at the time, Gunda Arena. I can't see that. But even on the watch back, because I've gone back and watched this pay-per-view, I've not really paid attention to it. And I didn't really look for this stuff until a couple years ago. Cornette broke it. Like, they did a watch along on his pod for this main event, because he's Vader's manager during it. So he's giving a lot of inside baseball about what was going on around this match. And it was a clunky ass match. You can see the clunkiness. It ends like falsely, like almost 3 different times for no reason. Like, there's a lot of run that backs in this match. It's very strange. But at the end of the day, if you don't get all of that weirdness from Shawn, I think this would be a better match, because Vader's he's a good heel, and that's what Shawn needed at this time. Was he needed those big, like Goliath-esque heels to overcome, to show people that even though he's a smaller worker, and this is why Vince was always afraid of putting the title on him. He can hang with those guys, but those guys ain't gonna work for you, brother. If they're afraid to work with you because of how you gonna act, whether it's in the ring as we saw, or when you walk through Gorilla. Vince was exactly. Vince wasn't in Gorilla at the time, but still, like it's that whole politics thing, and that made, I think, a lot of guys that could have been better for him worse because they were afraid of the circumstances that because Shawn has so much pull with Vince, because Vince looked at him like a son. As far as to my understanding, the stuff that he put up with versus other wrestlers, Shawn was on a whole nother level of stuff he could get away with and say to Vince McMahon versus other dudes in the back. So it was a lot. And like I said, and I'm sure Shawn, he talks about it, he regrets it, but that was the biggest, as I've gone back and watched it this time with the Smart Mark vision, like it hurts. It hurts to see like what could have been. And then as we get into other SummerSlams, he's featured on this month, it makes you feel even worse about like, goddamn, dude missed like 4 or 5 years of his career where if he wasn't fucking around, just being an asshole and just terrible to himself and everybody else around him.
A lot different.
He could be up there and I think he is in some people's minds, but he would be no question up there in like the top 3, no matter what era you talking about. So, but yeah, that was my biggest takeaways from this. But anything that you took away from this, Sean, we ain't got into?
Not much, man. You covered pretty good bases of everything, bro. I'm not even gonna lie. You covered a pretty good basis of everything. Good. I'll say it. Okay, match. I won't say good on Shawn Michaels' part because, like I say, he could have responded a little better. And I do agree, it's probably his fault this match did go that way because people are kind of, a little afraid of what to do because they don't want to get, reprimanded, fired, just embarrassed or, have a gimmick put on them because Shawn Michaels went ahead and told Vince some shit and ruin their fucking career or something like that. So you don't want to fuck with the guy that's got too much pull, basically.
Nah, man. Ask Shane Douglas. Ask who else was around at that time that he allegedly buried. Vader, you could ask if he was still around. Other guys too, but there's go watch any sort of wrestling shoot interviews on YouTube from guys that weren't over in that time frame. They look at him, Nash, and fucking Hall as main culprits of the nonsense. And you could throw in X-Pac in there too. Even though he didn't have weight, he was in that crew. Triple H wasn't anybody yet. But them dudes, he still to this day, they hold grudges, man. Mm-hmm. But all in all, that was 96 SummerSlam, man. It's a tale of two WWFs would be the best way to sum it up. Taking the nostalgia, rosy Cleveland colored glasses off of this, man. I'm gonna try to give letter grades to all of these SummerSlams we review. I think they deserve that much.
Letter grades, interesting. All right,
yeah, let's go letter grades on this one. I would give this particular card an event. I'm gonna give it a C+, bro. C+.
You're nicer than me. I gave it a C-.
Now that's probably more my nostalgia around the plus, because I was like, because I understood what this product was at the time, so this was better than what it could have been, but it wasn't WrestleMania 12. WrestleMania 12 was a way better event. It was just a few months before this. But why your C-?
Well, you got to look at the card. There's not one match inherently on this card where, in my opinion, it's just like, oh, that was, best match of the card, undoubtedly.
None of that.
Even if there was one match that was just undoubtedly best match of the card, you might have got a C+ out of me. Maybe. It's just between the highlights being the Boiler Room Brawl for me, which in itself was weird to see Taker in my opinion.
Big gimmick match.
Exactly. Favorite wrestler Shawn Michaels and Vader, which on paper would seem amazing, but in reality just was a little weird. Just because, again, he's scared to work with Shawn and he didn't want to hurt, and we don't get that actual Vader, which doesn't, when you got a timid Vader, doesn't work well with the 96 Shawn Michaels at all. And so with those two being the highlights of the card for me, that's not a very good average in my opinion. So I think I was pretty moderate, nice with the C-.
That's fair. I cannot fault the C- thinking around it. And as you talk to me or say that more, I'm like, I was probably just the nostalgia in me. I mean, I was there in the building. I'm sorry. I gotta give at least a C+.
I got you, man. I understand. It's different when you're actually there. It's different. For sure.
But that's folks, that is the episode this evening. Or today, I should say. We like I said, these are going to be a little different than the normal breakdowns that we've been doing and start off the pod. But with that being said, be on the lookout for the next one. The next one is my this will be, believe this is yours, Sean. This is your first up, like your OG SummerSlam. I'm gonna let you tell the people what we listening to next episode.
Next episode, ladies and gentlemen, which will be episode, what is that, 7?
Episode 7.
Episode 7 is going to be SummerSlam 2002.
Man,
now just go back. Just go back and think about the rosters in 2002. Look at that card. Go back and watch it. It's gonna make it more enjoyable when you come back and watch the review. You'll be able to see what you agree with, what you disagree with. Go ahead and talk some shit in the comments too, and maybe enlighten us a little bit.
Yeah, please do. Good. Thank you for bringing that up, Sean. Y'all go back and watch these two. If you got a Peacock subscription, or if you somehow are a king or queen of the world and got the VPN set up to still watch the network through some other country that still has access to the network, go back and watch this shit with us. It makes this listening experience so much better, in my opinion. I would be, unless I was like just always watching these every year on just rip after rip, it would be hard for me to enjoy this. At least go watch it after I listen to us, or come in and listening and then, or watching and then listen to our take on it. So definitely go watch the stuff we listen or are talking about in these podcasts. It will definitely enhance your listening experience. But like I said, this is another episode of The BA Show featuring the homie Sean from Fourth Rope Wrestling. So like I said, as you already know, you can find me and everything at Let Me Book Pod, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, letmebook.com. Yeah, that's the name of it. Letmebook.com.
Yeah.
Everything at Let Me Book.
Yes,
everything. Sir. Like I said, I will be taking a quick hiatus from the main podcast. I think by the time this is released, I've already taken that break. So yes, I will be back at my regular capacity every Friday. And as y'all know here, you're going to get us every Wednesday. But Sean, as we always love to let the people know, let them know where they can find you.
It's at 4THROPE. If you're illiterate, I apologize, but that's at Fourth Rope. All right, only place.
There you go.
Nowhere else to look. I appreciate you plugging me every week for that one.
If you know your numbers and letters, now you can find them. You don't even go out. You don't even know how to read anymore, y'all. He made it that easy for you, and no doubt, bro. That's what we do here. But like I said, this has been another episode of The BA Show. Everything is wrestling. Let the madness wash over you, and let the sympathy of SummerSlam symphonies. I'm gonna get that word right.
You're gonna get it. Don't worry, we're gonna get it right.
I'm gonna get it down. The symphony of SummerSlams rain down upon me. Yeah.